all written, the inspired language is the Hebrew language. The inspired name is the name of our Father, Yod He Ud He, which is no consonants, it's all vowels, and it's Yod He Ud He. Those are all vowels in the Hebrew language. That's the name of the Father. And the Son says, I've come in my Father's name. So when I see the Son's name, I should see the Father's name in the Son. I should see my Father's name in the Son. And if I can't see my Father's name in the Son, then that's not an inspired, listen to me now, it's not an inspired name, because that which is inspired is what was given to them. There was a Hebrew family given a Hebrew name, that's inspired. Well, we cast out devils with it. But he says people are going to come and cast out devils using my name. That doesn't mean they're going to get in the kingdom. Does not mean they're going to get in the kingdom. Just because you can cast out devils in his name, really what you believe in, if you don't believe in that name, I don't care how many times you utter it and say it, ain't nothing going to happen, because you don't believe it. You don't believe it. What gives it power is my faith and my belief. And so when I understand what an egregore is, if anybody's ever heard of an egregore, you can believe in something, and your belief and faith will give that whatever you believe in power. It would give it power. If I believe this microphone, that whenever I use it, I have it in my hand. Just like Moses parted the Red Sea, I can do this and part the Red. If I believe in this, it's my faith and believe in it that'll start to do things. You'll start to see miracles because of what I believe and have faith in. Even when the Most High Yah, because Musha didn't have a lot of confidence in himself, and he told him, "What is that in your hand?" He had to look at what was, okay, it's a staff. He said, "Well, raise the staff up." Raise the staff up. And so what you believe in and what you have faith in is going to empower that. It's going to empower that. And that's what an egregore is. So I can use a name or something else, but it's my faith and belief in that name that gives it its power. And that's what an egregore is. So when people say, well, I've cast out devils in Jesus, it's your faith and belief in that has given it power to where you can cast out devils, and you can speak against this and you can speak against that. It's because of your faith and belief. So if I know that he gave him a Hebrew name, and he says, neither is there salvation in any other, for there's none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved, which is in Acts 4:12. If I know what that inspired name is, which I do, Yahusha, because he come after his father in his father's name, then that should inspire me. And I should be able to move mountains and cast out devils and do everything like that. I'm not leaving the name. I'm going to the original, inspired. Okay. I'm going to what is inspired, because what he gave when Shaul says it's the inspired word, because it was given to them. It was given to them. It was a Hebrew people, a Hebrew language, and it was inspired. And so that's what we use, yes.
I think in the New Testament, where it says a devil, matter of fact, yes, the devil out there said, Jesus, I know, Paul, I know, who are you?
Yeah. And we, we have to have an understanding. Because of the language we speak an English language, so everything is given to us in English, because that's what the translation was. Did they use English? Did they speak English? They didn't speak English. They did not speak English. They spoke Hebrew and Greek. Hebrew and Greek. And even on the cross, his name was in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. So if I know what the Hebrew, Greek, and Latin is, why not just call his Hebrew name? Why not call on his Hebrew name? Jesus is something that evolved, because even in the first edition of the King James in 1611, it was not Jesus. So it evolved into where it is today. Why not just use the original? Why not use original? That's pure. That's pure. That's the name that was given unto us. The reason why we don't is because it's been pounded in us and drilled in us for 400 years that this is the name and that's what you use. And we believe that. So I move in faith. I move in what I believe. This is what I believe. And so through your belief and your faith in that, he moves on faith. See, our Father in heaven, he moves on faith. We think it's Jesus, but it's your faith that he moves on. It's your faith. He says, if you have faith, the grain of a mustard seed, you're going to be able to move mountains. You might have faith and never even speak his name, but you got faith and you can have things will get done. So it's my knowledge, having knowledge and the information on that. But the Ruach is going to guide you into all truth, and he will show you things to come. You will know if the Ruach is speaking through somebody, if they can show you things to come. In inspired word. In inspired word. If they can show you things to come in inspired word, that's the Ruach of truth. Do you know that when Shaul told Timothy and talked about his mother and grandmother, and do you know something else that he says? He says, you have learned of the scriptures since you were a child. Remember he said that? And from a child, you knew the holy scriptures. I think that's how it's worded. From a child, you knew the holy scriptures. Do you know that when Timothy was a child, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John was not written? The book of Acts was not written? None of Shaul. Shaul's writing to him. He's writing a letter to Timothy saying, now you know when you was a child, you learned the Holy Scriptures. So the Holy Scriptures that he learned was the Torah and the Tanakh. Shaul always taught Torah and Tanakh. That's all he had. Torah and Tanakh. In fact, if you don't understand Torah, you cannot see things to come. You can't see it if you don't understand Torah. If you're not looking through Torah and what was written through the pen, the inspiration of Musha and the other prophets, if you're not moving in that light, then you cannot see or know what is to come. And that's why a lot of people, a lot of CC, that's why they struggle or they give you a false vision. Actually, it's a false vision. And for all my life, and I'm certain for hundreds of years, because it was the Plymouth Brotherhood, the Plymouth Brotherhood under John Darby, that was the one that promoted the rapture doctrine and dispensationalism, first starting off in England, and since we are a offspring of England, it came over here into the United States of America. But before John Darby and the Plymouth Brotherhood, there was no dispensationalism and rapture taught as a doctrine. It was not taught as a doctrine. Not until John Darby did that. We have a lot of men and women who have letters behind their name because they went to seminaries and they learn from them, and they're the one that does all the narrating. It's the Anglo-Saxons that do all the narrating in it. So all of your commentary is through their narration of it. They don't even believe in Torah. They don't believe in what was given to Musha and to the nation of Israel. They'll tell you that all of that is done away with. I hear it all the time. We're not under the law. We're not under that. We're under grace. Well, explain what grace is. Is there right and wrong under grace? Can you sin under grace? Oh yeah, you can sin under grace. Well, what is sin? Explain to me what sin is. Sin is transgression of the law. So how could you say you're not under law? We should not be under the law of sin. The law of sin, which is in our members, I can't succumb to the law of sin. I still have a war. I still have temptation, but I can't succumb to that law of sin that's in my members. I got to know what his law says. I got to know what his law says. Well, the law was a schoolmaster to bring us to the Mashiach, and now that Mashiach's come, we're under faith. Well, Shaul says that I'm under the law to Mashiach. He said that. I'm under the law to Mashiach. They don't like to bring that out because they always want to say the law is our schoolmaster to bring us to the Mashiach, and now the Mashiach is here, I'm under faith, and I'm no longer under the law. But what Shaul said to counter that, he says, I'm under the law to Christ. I'm under the law to Christ. So he did not dispel or discard the law. He taught the law, and he taught righteousness that was in the law. So the Ruach is going to show you things, to come. It's just going to show you things to come. And you have to use inspired word in order to see it, especially in this day and time that we live in. So in Deuteronomy chapter 30, and we'll start at verse number 1. Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse number 1. Now, why is this important? Because what Musha says in Deuteronomy 30, what he says here, our Messiah, Yahushua Mashiach, says the same thing. He says the same thing, and then we'll look at that. Because our Messiah did not come to do away with any of the Torah. No. He fulfilled Torah, and the righteousness that's in Torah has to be fulfilled in us. Do I make void the law through faith? Yah forbid. No, what do? Okay, let's go there. Romans 3:31. Romans 3:31. And we'll go back to our lesson. Romans 3:31. Do we then make void the law through faith? Yah forbid. What do? We establish the law. We establish the law. So how do I establish the law? How do I establish the law? Then in Romans 8 and verse number 4. Romans 8 and 4. So this is how we establish the law. That the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, just like it was fulfilled in Mashiach. I didn't come to destroy it, I came to fulfill it. So the righteousness of the law must be fulfilled in us then. Because he didn't come to destroy it, he came to fulfill it. We must fulfill it. What do I fulfill? I fulfill the righteousness of it. You know what else they call righteousness of the law? Another word for righteousness of the law? Because we had been taught that under previous administration. What was it called? Because you remember our former pastor, and he would say we have to keep the. Oh, you guys don't remember? He said we have to keep the moral law. Remember he used to say that? He said the moral law has to be fulfilled. What he's saying is the righteousness that's of the law, that must be fulfilled in me. It has to be. Because when he judges me, he's going to judge me against his law. He's not judging me against the code of Iowa or the code of the United States of America. He's not going to judge me against that. He's going to judge me against his law. And here's the thing, because I tell you, people are in such a cloud. They're in such a cloud of deception. They'll tell you that they're not under any law, but yet they don't investigate to understand that in the code of the United States of America, you have parts of Musha's law. Even in the code of Iowa, almost every government, if you're an organized body of government, you have to have some kind of law for the people. And if you look at these countries and study their law, there's parts of Moses' law in all of them. In all of them. And so they say, so the CC says, we're not under any law, but you obey the law of the land, which in the law of the land, you got some Mosaic law. Every country has a little bit of Mosaic law in the law of the land, because when you go to establish a government, you got to have law and order. So I would love to hear CC say, I ain't under no law. Well, then just go out here and the speed limit is 25, do 55. Yeah, you got no law. You know, walk into the store and you see, because I know CC, go on over there to that freezer and get several pounds of them ham hocks and put it in your cart and then walk out the store. Go on there and grab a package of pork chops. Put them under your arm and walk out the store. And let me know if you're under law or not. Why don't you tell them, I ain't under no law. I ain't got to obey your law. Oh, you know what they'll call you? They'll probably call you an idiot. They'll say, you're going to obey this one. You're under arrest. You're going to obey this one. You're going to jail for stealing. Because the law says, thou shalt not steal. In almost every organized government, you've got laws on thievery and stealing. Because the law says, thou shalt not steal. Now, there's different penalties. And we have penalties here. But over in some nations, if you get caught stealing, the first time they do, they'll cut off a digit. You start off with 10 digits, you're down to 9. They catch you stealing again, you get another digit cut off. And you see people with missing fingers and stuff, because they have multiple missing fingers, kleptomaniacs. They didn't learn the first time, they kept stealing. So they got all these digits removed. Now here we just build a record on you. But that law comes from Musha's law, who CC say they ain't under. So, and there's others. So the righteousness of the law, that has to be fulfilled in me. I have to understand, because I'm going to be measured by Musha's law in the day of judgment. We're going to see that. That's what I'm going to be measured by. And if you can't measure up to that, he's going to get rid of you. We should be practicing. My whole life should be a course of practice for judgment. My whole life. I'm trying to go through this life. I don't want to be in transgression, because I know that there's a day coming where I'm going to be measured, or I'm going to be judged. That day is coming. I have an appointment with him. He says that in Acts 17. We all got an appointment with him. And he's going to judge us by the one that he rose from the dead. Now, in that verse, he doesn't give his name. But when it says he rose from the dead, the only one that I know that rose from the dead, never to go back, was Yahushua Mashiach. He's the only one. So that's who I'm going to be measured by. So how are you guys going to measure up? Because Yahushua says, except your righteousness exceed that. Let's look at that in Matthew 5 and verse 19. Matthew 5 and 19. Let's look at that. Because he says here, or verse 20, for I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom. That's why the righteousness of Torah, righteousness of law, has to be fulfilled in me. Because if it's not, I ain't going to get in. I ain't going to get in. And a lot of these preachers, I don't care what your name is, what title you have, if your righteousness doesn't exceed that of the scribe, how come Yahushua can say something and the CC people don't believe it? Why is that? Why can he say something point blank and CC don't believe it? It's because CC is under clouds and deception coming from the Roman Catholic construct of Christianity. They're under that cloud to where they can't see this. They can't see it. Righteousness fulfilled in me, it has to exceed the scribes and the Pharisees. Otherwise, I ain't getting in. So these are things we got to keep in mind. Deuteronomy 30, let's look at Deuteronomy 30 and verse number 1. Let's look at that. And it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee. Notice now, these things, he's getting ready to tell you what these things are. What are these things? The blessing and the curse. When all these things, what thing? The blessing and the curse. So in order for me to understand what he's talking about, I have to go to the 28th chapter of Deuteronomy, and that's going to tell me what the blessings are and what the curses. And he says, when it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, because all of that, starting at verse 16 in Deuteronomy 28, all the way down to verse 68 of Deuteronomy 28, he says, when all of the blessings and curse shall come upon thee, he says, which I have set before thee, which he gave them to us, and thou shalt call them to mind among where? All the nations, whither Yahuwah the Elohim have driven thee. So when he drives them out to all these nations, if it comes to their mind, the blessings and the curses, if in captivity, if it gets into your mind the reason why you're there, oh, now I understand why we're here. If it comes to your mind, isn't that what he says? When all these things are come upon thee, the blessings which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call to mind. See, this is why, and we're going to read here, this is why they don't want you to know. Because once you know and it gets into your mind, then you're going to be ready to react. And that's why Satan wants to keep you in the cloud of deception, because his purpose was to deceive the whole world. He wants you to stay in that cloud of deception because he knows that wherever Israel is scattered in all these nations, if it comes to their mind, the reason why they're there, we're in trouble. we're in trouble. And this is the day that we're at now. That's why people are waking up, and nations know, man, they figured it out. We try to hide it from them. We even gave them a different book. We gave them an instruction book that didn't have none of Exodus in it. Y'all know that? There was a Bible that didn't have Exodus or the Old Testament and stuff in it. Only had a few chapters or a few books of the Old Testament. Y'all don't know that? They had given out a book to those who were held captive when they came over here to this country. They gave out a book to them that did not have Exodus and a lot of the Old Testament in it. I think it had like Genesis, but then it would skip and go over to some other ones. But it's out there. You can find it. Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of the Old Testament. It has new in it now, but it only has a few books of the Old Testament. Because they know if these people, if it comes to their mind among all the nations where the Yahuwah the Elohim have driven thee. Now, a lot of people say, well, this already happened. This has already happened. Well, let's see. Let's see, because people say that this has happened, it's already fulfilled. That was a prophecy that's been fulfilled. So let's look at Luke 21 and 24. Luke 21 and 24. Luke 21, 24. Now, did this happen? Do you know when this happened? And they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So this happened after 70 AD. It happened after 70 AD. So captive into all nations. Let's go back to Deuteronomy 30. Deuteronomy 30 and verse 1. Let's go back there. It says, and it called to mind among all the nation where the Yahuwah the Elohim have driven thee. And we see where Yahusha said that in Luke 21, 24, and shalt return unto Yahuwah thy Elohim. Let's see how returning, what does it mean to return? And shalt return unto Yahuwah thy Elohim, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day. Obey his voice when he, the Ruach of truth, is come. Remember we read that? He's going to guide you into all truth. He's not going to speak upon himself, but whatsoever he heareth, that shall he speak. So, and shall obey his voice, the Ruach of truth, according to all that I command thee this day. You know if somebody's got the Ruach of truth. That what Yahusha spoke about in Yahukanam 16:13, what he spoke about, You know if they have the Ruach of truth, because the Ruach of truth is going to take you back here. It's going to take you back here. So anybody that says they got the Ruach of truth but can't go back here, what they're telling you is they don't have it, or they haven't gone through all. It's not guiding them into all truth. I got the Ruach, but no, that's not what I see. That's not, you know what a lot of people say? That's not what I've been taught. So then who's your teacher? Because the Ruach should be my teacher. And it even says, he even says, I see your hand. Yeah. Yeah, they didn't have no problem. There's a lot of history behind that we could get into at some other time, but it's not what we think it is. And there's a lot of covering up that they want to do to discredit and make it seem like you're not the people. So they're trying to cover some things over, but we could deal with that at a later date. So according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children. Notice now, if you return to who? Yahuwah Elohim, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children. That's why it's so important to teach our children with all thine heart and with all thy soul. You cannot give him all your heart and all your soul. It is not in all your heart and all your soul if you don't believe it. How can I turn to him with all my heart and all my soul if I don't believe it? I don't believe it. Well, then you don't have all your heart and all your soul in it. Nobody can have all their heart and all their soul in it if they don't believe it. He says, obey my voice to all that I command thee this day. What did Musha command them that day? What did he command them that day? Well, you have to go back and read what he had commanded them that day. In that day that he commanded. The most important thing he did was he taught them how to be a Kodesh nation. He said, you got to be a Kodesh nation. Kodesh means holy or set apart. What he taught them was how to be a set apart nation. Set apart nation. So when you look at all that Musha taught them, if we follow the righteousness in that, because it's right to do it, that's going to set me apart. It's just going to set me apart. Naturally doing it is going to set you apart. And the greatest fight you get is from CC, because they'll tell you don't have to do that. So it automatically sets you apart. It automatically sets you apart. And with all thine heart and with all thy soul, because there's not just one, but there's multiple places in inspired scripture where he talks about all thine heart and all thy soul. I want it all. I don't want 50%. I don't want 75%. 90. We used to sing that song, 99 and a half won't do. Remember, we used to sing that song? 99 and a half won't do. No, because he wants all. All means all. I want it all. I don't want half of it. Well, I half believe it. You don't believe all of it? No, I don't believe all of it. I just have a hard time. I talked to a preacher, and I was telling them, the people over in the land who call themselves Israel, they're actually Israelis. They're not Israelites. And they call themselves Israelis because when you say Israeli, it doesn't connect you to the ancient Israelites. It's more of a modern day terminology, and anybody can go over there and be part of the nation, be considered an Israeli. So Israeli distinguishes you from the ancient Israelites. And that's all you gotta do is look up the term Israelis and Israeli, and it gives you that definition. And so I was telling them about, the people over there, they're not really Israel. Now this is a preacher now, apostolic preacher. And they're not the people. They're Khazars. I think I told them they were Khazars, and they just, as a nation, they converted over to Judaism as a nation. And so they've been known to be the wish people, but they're not really the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So I had that conversation with him, and and I'm supposed to be on a podcast Tuesday morning. I'll try to get you that information, but I'm gonna be on a podcast. I don't know if it's live or if it's. Do they do podcasts live or do they tape delay them? Or is it live when you? Sometimes they're live. So it might be live 11 o'clock on Tuesday. I'm gonna be on a podcast. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting because of the questions that are going to be asked. It's going to be interesting. Yes. It's not on TV. It's on a podcast, and I guess I don't know how you can get the podcast on a device, like a phone or a computer or something. I don't. Maybe somebody knows about podcasts. I really don't know how they work. I don't know how they work. Yeah, so I have to get more information. But once you do a podcast, I guess you can always go back and listen to it, right? You just got to select that particular lesson or day or time or something.
Whose podcast is it?
It's Pastor Larry Westbrook.
Oh,
He's got his own podcast.
then you should be able to go under, well, it depends on the type of phone you have and find that podcast. Find
It-
the pin.
But where do you look for them at?
My phone, it has like podcasts, and I can just go and look for whoever.
You have to have the app podcast.
I don't know. Okay, I'm not technology savvy.
I'm not either. I'm not either.
But I know that people have like, you can look for certain, like if you have Sirius XM or something like that, they have podcasts that you can look for, and if you type in his name, you might pop up.
Okay.
They should have like archived ones, or if sometimes, like I said, they do it live.
Yeah. No, I got. I have to go to this place, and we're going to sit down, kind of like in the studio or whatever, and he'll have all the equipment set up, and then we'll just have he's going to interview me.
What's his name again? Larry what?
Westbrook. Yeah. Larry Westbrook. Yeah. 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 He's that's my cousin. Yeah. Westbrook's my cousin. So he's got his own podcast, and he wants me to be on there Tuesday morning. Yeah. Yeah. So with all thine